Yeah, speaking of things to see right through, is the libs trying to alter elections by not having anybody show proof that they are eligible to vote in elections? This is apparently not a federal thing, which it's crazy to me that it's not. And we knew that it's not, but the fact that this is even a topic of conversation is nuts to me. President Trump yesterday signed an executive order that on federal forms would require proof of citizenship. In other words, you have to prove that you're able to vote. A bunch of big media outlets, including the Apple News daily podcast that I listen to because, well, I need to punish myself for my sins and listen to that garbage. But they said, well, this is going to be met with lawsuits. So apparently there are libs out there saying, hey, we don't want the proof of citizenship. Now, we know this is happening, but Chris, why is it that this is a hill they're still willing to die on when Americans want election integrity?
I mean, I could do this very, very quickly. Kamala Harris won 13 states with no voter ID required. She won 4 states where just a photo ID was, where no photo ID was required, and only 2 states where photo ID was required. This is really the crux of the issue. The Democrats know that they're pulling a fast one on the American people, and they want to keep doing it. I mean, it's as simple as that. But they'll scream racism. Yet on the conservative side, if there's a white Norwegian who is an illegal alien, I don't want him voting either, to be perfectly honest with you. It's not a race thing. It's a citizenship thing.
Yeah, it doesn't. And also, by the way, every country in the world effectively does this sort of thing. And a lot of countries don't have the, well, if you were born here, you're a citizen. You have to earn your citizenship in some way, shape, or form. Ivy, is this going to get a bunch of pushback, you think? Do you think Speaker Johnson will try and get this through the House and make it an actual federal law?
Yes, I think he will, and I think he should. I think it's one of those things that's just a no-brainer. There's a lot of those things that are coming up right now that it's like, why hasn't this happened this entire time? Why hasn't? Of course, and even a lot of like Democrats agree that voter ID is important. People, like you said, all across the world, every civilized democracy across the world requires some form of voter ID. And I think it's ridiculous, and they kind of say the quiet part out loud when their excuse is that a lot of minorities can't access voter ID and they don't know how to figure that out. And I think the people who say that voter ID is racist are the actual racists. For saying that certain marginalized groups, they're unable, they're too dumb to get voter ID.
Yeah.
It outs their racism, and it's so flat out just blatant for everyone to see. I think it's a ridiculous argument. It's all
that has been my contention for the longest time of, oh yeah, you poor minorities are too darn stupid to go get a government ID. That's a very belittling and in fact racist. Speaking of things that we were wondering, how was this not a thing already? RFK and Brooke Rollins are trying to make it so that you can't buy unhealthy food, i.e. soda, sugary candy stuff, with food stamps, or the SNAP program, effectively, food stamps. Chris, considering the fact that if you're on food stamps, the likelihood of you also being on some sort of government subsidized healthcare plan, meaning that, well, okay, we're going to pay double now. You think this is a pretty solid win for the overall American demographic?
Yeah, I mean, it should be a slam dunk. It should be open and closed, but it won't be. You know how the Democrats are. They're going to push back on it. And even conservatives were taking the change to taking some money to post against this online, which I don't fault the company for that. I fault the conservative influencer not having enough integrity to keep it 100 with their audience personally. But when it comes to these SNAP benefits, I mean, I lived in Richmond when I was about 20 years old, and we would go down to this convenience store. It was kind of a dicey neighborhood. And outside the convenience store, I'd bump into a gentleman and he'd say, "Hey, what are you buying in there?" And I'd say, "Well, I'm getting a few snacks." He'd say, "Hey, you can spend $15 if you give me 10." And I think you have to understand how much this system is completely being gamed by individuals. And it was CJ Pearson on Twitter. CJ Pearson said, "If the soda gets you mad, wait until you find out about the lobster tail and crab legs."
Ooh, yeah. Ivy, I mean, I think, there could be a case to be made that nobody should be drinking soda or eating any of these super sugary stuff that'll end you up in the hospital, especially if we end up moving to a single payer healthcare system. But that's a different conversation for a different time. But I don't know. What are your thoughts as a mom of, do you give your kids this stuff? And if you don't, then should the government be?
Well, if I'm being honest, every now and then, of course, we'll get little treats, we'll get snacks, it'll be a birthday party, we'll have a cake, all that. That's me being honest. And a lot of the people who are against anything being cut from SNAP, they'll use that as an excuse of, well, people should be able to buy their kids treats. People should be able to do that. They need, we shouldn't restrict that. And I think that's just ridiculous because if you're doing that, that should be a small amount of what you're doing. And the entire purpose of the SNAP program was to supplement your food. It wasn't to create. It wasn't to take over and cover everything and every birthday and every treat. That's not what it was ever meant to do. So I have not heard a single argument in favor of not regulating it further. And it's already been regulated for years. You cannot buy tobacco. You cannot buy alcohol. You can't even buy vitamins because those don't count as part of what they claim is a nutritious food plan, right? So I don't understand why soda, candy, the things that are purchased the very most, I don't know why those are even still being paid for. I don't know what purpose that serves.
Yeah, we will see if that gets all the way through with RFK and Brooke Rollins over there at the federal government.